Shortly, we'll be bringing you live coverage of the British Prime Minister Theresa May's speech as she brings a tumultuous Conservative Party conference to a close. She's expected to challenge her critics and seek to rally her party behind the promise that Brexit opens up a future full of promise. Just yesterday, her rival Boris Johnson eviscerated her Brexit plans as dangerous and politically humiliating. The former Foreign Secretary, who resigned in protest against May's so-called Chequers plan in July, made his comments to a packed conference hall in Birmingham.
This is the moment to do that, and there is time. This is the moment to chuck Chequers. All this nonsense we would have to implement with no ability to change or resist. That is not pragmatic. That is not a compromise. It is dangerous and unstable.
We're joined now from Birmingham by our correspondent Vincent McAviney. Vincent, what's the latest there with you?
Good afternoon, Tokes. Well, that's the main hall behind me where Theresa May will be making this speech. She'll start in the next 10 minutes. It's absolutely packed with delegates and Conservative MPs, but it's news from outside of the hall that's dominating here. An MP who's a backbencher, James Duddridge, has submitted a no-confidence letter to the chairman of the Conservatives' 1922 committee. Now, we think that that is about the 36th no-confidence letter to be given to him. If there are 48 submitted, then it triggers a leadership election in the Conservative Party, and Theresa May could lose in that. He says in an interview he's just given that this conference has been a disaster and that Theresa May's refusal to rip up Chequers is the problem. He's also said that Boris Johnson's speech yesterday was inspirational, and that's the reason that he has submitted this letter now. Now, there were a lot of Conservative MPs in the audience yesterday, some senior ones like Ian Duncan-Smith and Priti Patel. We could see this afternoon more MPs submitting these letters. It really is now Theresa May's political life in the balance with this speech. She's obviously going to be talking about Brexit, but she's going to try to sort of explain to her party that she's more than just a Brexit Prime Minister, that she wants to stay in the job for a couple more years, because she's going to be talking about a fuel tax rise that's in place. We think she's going to be making a housing announcement. She was going to make a big announcement on a change to immigration policy, but she had to rush that forward to Tuesday to try to drown out Boris Johnson. That didn't work, and we'll see in the next couple of hours whether she can do enough to keep MPs on side, or if we're going to have more letters of no confidence submitted.
Vincent McAviney there. We're all on standby for Theresa May's speech, but we're just going to cross over to Brussels now, where we'll be joined by our correspondent Stefan Grober. Stefan, what are EU leaders expecting from Theresa May's speech?
Well, if you ask EU leaders about Theresa May, they will tell you that it doesn't really matter what she says in Birmingham. What matters is what she says at the negotiating table. And there, you know, the talks are stalled for quite some time now. European leaders will want one firm British commitment that there won't be any hard border checks between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. This is all what matters. All the other issues, financial issues, immigration and whatnot, this can be solved quite easily, but it's the Irish issue, the major stumbling block, the major problem here in these negotiations. And we know the two opinions. The EU doesn't want border checks, and Britain says we don't want border checks right through the Irish Sea, effectively. So there will be border checks between Ireland and Northern Ireland. So how do you square the circle? How do you compromise? How do you reconcile these two positions? That is the multi-billion euro or multi-billion pound sterling question.
Stefan will be returning to you later throughout the afternoon, perhaps after Theresa May's speech. But joining me in the studio now is our correspondent Isabel Kumar. And Isabel, we're just hearing that the EU expects something on, perhaps something from Theresa May to break this deadlock over Ireland. But for her, on the domestic front, what should we be looking out for?
Well, basically, this is the speech of her political life, and we've heard this so many times before, but she needs to reassert her authority, particularly over Brexit. Now, in some respects, given the fact that she could now well be facing a leadership challenge, but in some respects she's going into this, Chequers is vaguely intact. It's faced a lot of criticism from within her own party, obviously, which is why she's facing this potential leadership challenge. And she's also faced criticism, we saw at the Salzburg summit just a few weeks ago, regarding that Brexit Chequers plan too. It's been savaged by her former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. So really what she needs to do is strike an optimistic and strong note and show her party that she's the one who can bring them through Brexit and bring everybody the best deal.
Okay, and indeed we were just hearing from Vincent McAviney there that there's been yet another challenge to her leadership from James Duddridge, a backbench MP, which according to reports now brings the number of people against her to 36.
And 48 is the magic number, isn't it?
Indeed.
You know, and so the timing is awful for her. But, you know, let's cast back our minds to last year. Last year was pretty awful for her too. She went into that speech and, you know, so many things went wrong. She had a coughing fit, and this year apparently she's got a tickly cough again. One of the members of the cabinet had to rush in and give her a cough suite to help her out. There was also a prankster in the midst of the Tory party conference who handed her a P45, and that's the form you receive when you've got to hand in your resignation. And he said that was from her former, the Foreign Secretary at the time, Boris Johnson. So things went pretty badly then. So we're just going to see how things go now, and most particularly, as you're mentioning, with these letters of no confidence, is it going to reach that magic number of 48?
Okay, well, whilst we wait to see more on that, let's cross back now to Birmingham, where Vincent McAviney is still on standby for us. Vincent, what does Theresa May have to do to convince the leavers within her party really to remain with her?
Well, it's going to be a tough job for Theresa May. Of course, she's got that memory haunting her of how bad it went wrong last year. That clip went around the world. It was played in late-night comedy shows in America, news reports down in Australia as well. So she needs to just get through this speech, but also she needs to deliver. She needs to inspire her party. She's calling it opportunity in our hands. I've had some extracts through, and she says, "I passionately believe that our best days lie ahead of us, that our future is full of promise." She's also going to say at one point, a party of patriotism, but not nationalism, a party that believes in business, that is not afraid to hold business to account. So Theresa May trying to project this image of a global Britain which is going to do well out of Brexit. But the problem is, she thought that she was coming to this speech, this main hall here, which is absolutely packed, having gone to that Salzburg meeting and having her Chequers plans rubber stamped and endorsed by the EU. So she could turn to her party and say, my plans are the only ones that'll work. You've now got to vote them through Parliament for the sake of the country. But we all know that that did not happen. She was humiliated in Salzburg, was visibly angry at the outcome of it, and now she is facing this possible rebellion in her own peas. It's unclear at the moment whether this is a coordinated effort, with James Duddridge's resignation letter being put into the 1922 committee. Whether or not we see a flurry of these, if it's coordinated, will be interesting. But at the moment, she needs to get on that stage and really show the party that she is the leader to take them out of the EU.
Well, this is, as we've very much detailed now over the last few minutes, Theresa May has faced down so many challenges and threats to her leadership. But do you think that how worried should she be now with this letter that you mentioned from James Duddridge?
I think she will be worried. It's obviously timed to try to spook her before this speech, but it might just do the reverse. It might fire her up. She's always been somewhat in the shadow of the first female leader of the Conservative Party, the first female Prime Minister of this country, Margaret Thatcher, who cast a long shadow over this country. In the gift shop, which is just up there, Tokes, there is still lots of Margaret Thatcher memorabilia being sold. And when Theresa May came to power, they thought that they had a new Iron Lady. They thought that she was tough, she was invincible, that she'd had this great couple of years at the Home Office. But now her image is so tainted after losing her majority at last year's election and really struggling. That conference speech last year, she has all through the summer, as we've talked through every day, faced challenges week after week where we thought that she might not be that much longer in 10 Downing Street. But really, now the time is critical for her to take to that stage and to be bold for her political future, because the MPs watching will know that if enough of them put in resignation letters, we think it's around 36 at the moment, the threshold is 48, that will trigger a leadership election. And the calculation by MPs who are thinking of doing that will be, do we have enough votes so it means that anyway Theresa May's Chequers Brexit plans won't get through the House of Commons and it will be a crisis anyway? That is the question that they will be asking themselves this afternoon. If she doesn't do a good enough job, they may decide to pull the plug now. Parliament goes out of recess next week, and that's when this process can officially be started. Theresa May has been safe over the summer during these recess periods, but now back in parliamentary session, she is once again in danger unless she delivers on that stage behind me.
Well, Vincent, we're going to take a quick look at that stage behind you now, where preparations are in full swing ahead of Theresa May's address to the Conservative Party conference. Let me remind you, of course, this is the final day of her party's conference, and you can see here the crowd is up on its feet. Just has Isabel, let me just ask you here, what will be the key themes that we're expecting from Theresa May?
Well, I think the key theme will be Brexit. Obviously, she's also going to touch on some other issues, but you know, it's all about Brexit now, isn't it? It's how she's going to lead the country through Brexit, and if she can basically overshadow, in some respects, Boris Johnson's showmanship yesterday, where he really did steal the show with his plans for Brexit, because he's obviously pushing for this very different deal. He wants this Canada plus deal, more of a free trade agreement, when she's looking for a much closer relationship with the European Union.
Indeed.
So
but in a way, doesn't that make it easier for the Conservative Party faithful, because Johnson has presented them with a clear choice. It's May's way or his way.
That's absolutely right. And it's probably why we're seeing now this leadership contest taking place. But, many say that Boris Johnson doesn't have what it takes to be a leader. He is a great showman. But does he have what it takes? The people of the cabinet in Theresa May's cabinet says that he's too unruly. He's not organised enough. He's great on stage. He's great for grabbing headlines, as he does in the Daily Telegraph in his column. But, he probably can't have that rigid approach which is required to be a prime minister. So yes, he's offering this different approach, but do people really believe in him to be a leader that can bring the country through this very difficult process? And you can't help but wonder what EU leaders are thinking at this stage, when we're seeing Britain at this very, very critical turning point when it comes to its future membership of the European Union.
Indeed. Well, whatever EU leaders are thinking, no doubt we'll be hearing from them later today as we give you continuous coverage of the Conservative Party conference. Now, just while we're waiting